go ahead and bang that red subscribe button, turn on your notifications, and if you haven't done so already, comment on this video. We want to know your thoughts. I'm sure some of you will call me stupid. I'm sure some of you will say I'm out of touch with reality. I see you TikTok users who have done that to me, but guess what? You're watching a 3-minute clip. You aren't watching this full podcast. So you need to watch this full podcast, comment your thoughts, bang that red subscribe button, turn on the notifications, and at the end of your comment, if you leave your Instagram handle, you have an opportunity to win $100 Amazon gift card. What's up?
Forward thinking to 2023.
Yeah.
So there's been some articles out there that are all over the place. I see a bunch. I mean, we just talked about how Charlotte was expected to grow 11.2% in 2023.
Right.
Yeah, there's a Housing Wire article that I know you were just reading that was talking about how pessimistic it's looking.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are they're wrong. One of two things is going to happen. They have to put us in a recession if they want interest rates. Well, okay. Let me go back. Let me backtrack. If they're in such a conundrum right now,
They are.
you drive us into a recession, interest rates drop, you're going to drive inflation in housing again because we have a lack of inventory. And I feel like the easy answer of what's going to happen is, okay, we're going into recession. We have a slowing of the economy, manufacturing, this, that, and the other thing, and that's what they're doing. So interest rates will drop, but they haven't resolved the inventory issue. How about create some incentive for home builders?
Right.
Right?
Right.
Create incentive for that. Create incentive to work and build the houses, right? Because we have an inventory issue. I've said a million times, since 2017, there are 3 million more families in this country today than in 2017. On top of it, you have first-time or household formations, like family formation, household formations. That's up, which is first-time home buyers.
Yeah.
You have baby boomers who are the biggest generation, not ready to move out of their houses yet. And then you combine Gen Z and millennials. Average age of a first-time home buyer is 33 years old. So that's millennial, some Gen Z is trying to buy. You combine that generation, it's huge, right? So they're looking to buy their first homes. Baby boomers aren't moving, and there's 3 million more families. And then guess what? Lumber supply burned up. Supply chains were shut down. We have a housing crisis.
We do.
In the sense of there's not enough houses. Stop inflation. Let's build more houses. One. And I'm not talking like crappy little throw them up. Build some nice houses. On first time starter homes. People need starter homes, right? Now, here's the other piece is, so I think they're way off. So I think they're in a pretty tough position. Go ahead.
I'm about to say, you said it yourself, like in terms of like the price point. Like look at where, because clients like looking for a $700,000 house aren't in this market aren't having much problem.
No.
But you go to the 350,000, 450,000, bidding wars.
Right.
It's absolutely insane. So that price point is a desperate need for more supply.
Huge need. It's a massive need for more supply. And what's going to happen is if they drive us into a recession, interest rates go down, housing prices go up, inflation goes up, right? Because housing costs will go up.
Right.
Because housing costs will go up because the cost of the house is going to be more. But if the interest rate's down, maybe that eases the tension on inflation just a little bit. But how low are you going to get the interest rate? So now you're playing this balancing act of what's the Fed going to do?
Right.
And the Fed isn't very quick to react.
Dude, it is so wild. I was actually listening to a mortgage coach podcast, and he was saying,
shout out Dan Savage.
Yeah, but they were saying like it's so weird that actually feeling like you have to pull for people to get unemployed because that's the only way the Fed's going to start changing things.
Right.
And like you never want to pull for someone to lose their job, but at the end of the day too, if the Fed keeps raising rates like they are, it's only going to end up worse.
They have to stop raising rates.
Yeah.
And everybody in mortgage who has a brain is saying it. Stop. Because you are causing Barry Habib today. Recession all around us.
It's just such a wild market with
Dan
the fact with
so
them
some
artificially manipulating.
But think about it. Some of the biggest names in this industry, Barry Habib and Dan Savage, are those not two of the biggest names in
probably
the industry?
the biggest too. Like in terms of market.
From a public standpoint too, and people knowing who they are. Not saying smart. I'm saying biggest names.
Yes.
But to me, people I truly respect, who I know what they're doing, right? They don't know me. but I watch them. I see what they're doing. They inspire me. They're a little bit older than us.
Yeah.
They inspired us to start this podcast.
Yeah.
To get the real information out to people, because real information is not getting to people in the mortgage industry, right? And so you got Barry Habib. You got Dan Savage. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Like, I'm glad that they're putting this information out and they're pulling the CPI numbers. I am so much smarter when it comes to mortgage, and I feel like I'm so much more ahead of the curve because of the amount of knowledge I gained from watching Dan Savage and Barry Habib. And then it forced me to go get smarter myself, right?
Right.
They're both saying the same thing.
Oh, they are.
They're saying the same thing. And those are two of the most respected people. You look at some big economists as well who know what they're doing, criticizing the Fed. I was watching NBC the other day. And one of those money talk shows. I forget which one it was, but I'm interested to see what's going on. And you see you see this big economist come on and just blister the Fed, basically saying they don't know what they're doing. And then you look at how this Fed's performing compared to the Fed in the 80s when we were trying to get out of that inflation. Polar opposites. One did a fantastic job, one did a terrible job. I don't understand it. They're going to put us into a deep recession if they don't stop raising the interest rates. They have to. And it's like you're rooting for people to lose their jobs, because if you root for the government to stop printing money, which helps cause inflation.
Right.
If you root for something like that, or for world economies to open back up to flood the market with supplies, so you have more supply and demand goes down, or if you're rooting for that, you just know it's not going to happen because the government isn't efficient. They aren't smart. They don't see what's going on. And the Fed just doesn't stop printing money to hand to the government to send to Ukraine. And I also understand, listen, there's a lot of stuff going on overseas and with that war, and why you want to help and why you don't want to help or whatever, right? But at the end of the day, you can't root for the printing of money to stop because it's not going to.
Right.
You can't root for supply chains to open back up because they for just China opens back up and then they go back to COVID zero policy and it's back and forth, right? And China supplies a lot of the world's supply chain and manufacturing and things of that nature. We don't have the factories here that we used to have. So you have to root for people to lose their jobs so that the Fed stops. But the problem with the Fed is they aren't even picking apart the numbers. Pick apart the numbers.
Yeah.
When there's less unemployment claims or less jobless claims.
Yeah.
So meaning there was more jobs in possession.
Right.
Like more people had jobs.
Right.
And the number changes, but the amount of hours that they're working goes down. It means they're working part-time jobs because they've probably lost their jobs, which means they're in a recession.
Yeah.
So it's just, yeah, no, I think it's absolutely, wild. Absolutely wild. So, I don't know. What are your thoughts, Ben?
I mean, I agree with you. I mean, it's just so weird being in an artificially manipulated market, like, because you say, oh, it can be great because you look at how much we thrived in last couple of years. But is that really a good thing? Like the rates were too low in 2020, 2021. Like, mm-hmm. And I think a lot that in large part caused where we are now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so it's really wild, just the fact that it's artificially.
But that's again the Fed's fault, man. They're so slow to react. Like,
exactly.
You have to be nimble. You have to be quick.
Well, yeah, and I mean I'm a big laissez-faire believer economy, like guiding hand.
To the people who don't understand laissez-faire, explain it.
It's a guiding hand, meaning the market will monitor itself. Like at the end of the day, I mean, I said before that supply and demand runs everything, because at the end of the day, the market will balance everything out. It just needs a soft guiding hand just for some smoother transitions. That's it.
So who's the soft guiding hand? The government?
I mean, in this case, it would be the Fed, yes. But with how our government's set up, it would be the Fed. But I mean, even then, it's not supposed to be manipulating markets with mass buying of bonds with everything that they've been doing.
Well, they've come out and said that too, that they aren't super comfortable with doing this.
Right.
Like, I'm not talking about the hiking of the interest rate, but the mass buying of bonds and carrying balance sheets and stuff, right?
Right.
So,
what should have happened is by guiding it is actually looking at mortgage fraud back in the 2006, 2007, cracking down on it then before it got to a point that caused a national disaster in the economy.
Right. So there is places where the government can step in
Absolutely.
and the government can say, hey, we need to look at this.
Because this can cause a massive issue.